Okay, so pop quiz. What if right now you knew that you had to get more done than the hardest working person you've ever met in your entire life, but you had to do it with less effort than the most lazy couch potato you've ever seen, okay? So you get more results: health, wealth, relationship, higher purpose, all those results. Whatever it is, in whatever area of your life that's important to you, you're getting more results. You're just smoking everybody. Like you're just stunting on everybody. But at the same time, you look more lazy than just some derping couch potato. How could you do that? Well, in this video, what I'm going to give you is a real take on what I believe is a possible answer to that question, for real. And I'd encourage you to watch the video from start to finish, because what you're going to learn here is going to change your life. Could be as much or more than anything that you've ever seen. These are epiphanies that have taken me years and years and years of going out and socializing, building an 8-figure business, working on many, many different projects that were very, very challenging. And to be honest with you, just me doing my art and trying to become more skilled as a teacher and as somebody who's creative. These are the skills that I've learned to go to the highest level that I'm capable of, because I realized over time that if I just grind, I'm just going to freaking kill myself. Cause me, I've seen it where I get overweight from it. I get stressed from it. I just get so tense and whatnot. I'm getting more done than anybody I know, but I'm just super duper duper stressed. So the motivation's there, the execution's there, but I'm getting stressed. And then other times I can meditate and I get super duper duper unstressed and very, very calm. And I get more calm than almost anyone I've seen just through many, many years of meditation. But what I wanted to learn over time was how to combine both. How do you do that? And in this video, what I'm going to explain to you is that you could become what's called a transcendent executor. And what that means is honestly doing a very, very deep dive on all the different areas of your life that you're just causing yourself a ton of stress and just making things harder than they have to be, and not prioritizing and not really looking at the opportunity cost of what you're losing by being stressed, and instead saying to yourself, what if there was only 5 or 10 things that you had to focus on? Like that was it, just 5 or 10 things, and you just locked in and focused on those 5 or 10 things. And what if you just allowed all that energy that's being wasted to focus on what truly matters? How could your life change? Now, by the way, as we go into this, I'm going to tell you what are those 5 things that you can do to change your life right now if you want to get serious about it, which is to click the link that I have right below here and get onto a free phone call, which is a system that I've set up to ask you intriguing questions just like this, to take you through a very, very powerful audit of your life, give you total clarity on it, and get you something personalized. Because see, here's the problem that I see. I've mentioned this before. I walk out on the street all the time. People come say hi to me. And when I realize that they start to see me like a cartoon character, they see me like they're watching, a television show or something, or a movie. And the thing that I want you to realize, it's not about watching me or watching my results. This is really about you and your results. This is about having the real change. So there's a lot of people that are watching this that frankly, they don't care about real change. But this is me speaking directly to you, okay? This is me pouring my heart out directly to you. If you're somebody who cares more about results than anything else, it's not just about watching a video and entertaining yourself. I make my videos entertaining as humanly possible and engaging. But it's not just about that. That's cool, but it's not just about that. It's about you actually realize you got one life, right? I mean, hey, it's just your life, right? Just your life, right? That's all it is, just your life. So if you're somebody who actually cares a lot about your life, you'll click this link below and get onto a free call. We're going to be going very, very deep on you and your life and make it real, so that now as you're watching this video, you're seeing the real intention of it, which is a 1-2 punch between you watching this video, but you taking action in real life and making it real. So get on that free call right now. I'm really, really excited for you to get on it. We're not going to have this up forever, but while we've got it up, get on the free call. Enjoy that call. It's going to prep you for this video, or watch this video all the way through and prep you for the call. It's a 1-2 punch. You're going to enjoy it. In the meantime, let's go very, very deep on what it would mean to focus on what truly matters and change your life in the most meaningful way. Let's do it. You realize AI is probably coming, right? And probably in your lifetime. Not 100%. I mean, it's here now, but I mean like the one that gets like a little crazy. So we don't know how that thing's going to react. We are not sure yet. I'm not really sold on it personally. But you have to understand that in the future coming up, human beings, in my view, are greater than AI. I believe this, but not in our current iteration. No, we're barely better than an animal in our current iteration. So,
the philosophical question is, can they do more? Will that violent AI be able to do more than it's programmed to do? That's a real philosophical.
Well, they call it runaway AI. So what happens is that once it can train itself, it's in this sort of, I think they call that a recursive loop or something like that. And then it just gets faster and faster and faster and faster until it becomes, it would appear quite godlike actually. And so the thing, the first question is, does this not already exist? It probably does, because we're probably not the first planet with life on it, whether planet or dimension or something that we can't conceive of. So there you go right off the bat. But then from that same standpoint, so there's probably already AI from other planets aware of us, or we may be in that now, or maybe in a simulation now. But in addition, whatever it is that we're in currently is whatever this is that we're in. I mean, we could be on our own collective ayahuasca trip now, realize that. But then in addition to that, you have it to where the AI is going to be able to outcompete you in a major way, and in your current iteration. Because see, there's sort of these really interesting philosophical questions that you can ask that even if it were to be 100% on point or not, it gets you thinking, if that makes sense, like just little questions that make you think. So let me give an example, but then I'll bring it back to AI. An example is if you knew that you were, here's the question. What is the single most, if you own a company, what's the single most important product that you create if you own a company to sell? Yourself? The company. Yeah, the company. So in other words, you could cash out of the company. So the way that we think about this as a thought experiment, even though you may never actually sell your company, what would that thought experiment cause you to do by saying to yourself, I'm planning to sell this company? What if you run a business and I challenge you right now and I say, you have to build this to sell it, even though you may intend to never ever sell it? What if I said that to you? You're building this to sell it. How would that change what you build if you knew that you're going to sell it?
Less attachment to it.
Less attachment, but it's good to be attached in certain ways too, but to be engaged with it. But also, it would force you to build systems. You wouldn't be allowed to just do everything yourself. You wouldn't be, because you would have to do things like creating standard operating procedures for every single thing that you're doing. You'd be forced to make manuals for everything that you do. You'd be forced to systematize everything that it is that you're doing. If you're going to go buy a company and there's just some really, really powerful owner who's amazing, and then they're going to be taken out of the equation, you wouldn't want to buy that company. You'd want to buy all the standard operating procedures and the different processes and certain lead bases and things like that. You would audit the company and say, what is it worth? Well, in the same way, okay, as a thought experiment, even if you're never going to sell your company, you can use that as a thought experiment for how you build your business to build it in a better way where maybe you could take vacations or things like that. Well, in the same way, what if there's not going to be runaway AI in our lifetime? Maybe you will even wind up getting hit by a car before then. Who knows, right? We don't know what will happen in our lifetime. But what if runaway AI is coming already? In fact, what if genetic engineering, similar to the movie Gattaca, is coming, or human-animal hybrids or things like that could be coming, right? We don't know what it is that's coming. We have no way to know this 100%. So if that's, I mean, I guess some people might, but I don't personally. Perhaps someone here does. I don't personally. But as a thought experiment, knowing that that's coming, then what I'd say to you is, what would allow you to compete in a world where AI is predominant? That's a thought experiment right there. And what it does is it forces you to tap in and ask yourself, where's the real value in what it is that you do? Okay, where's the real value in who you are, what capacity you have, and what it is that you do? Because understand that AI is not riddled with insecurities and derping and infighting and arguing and yada, all this crap that human beings do, to where a machine is not quite as likely, although I guess there could be computer viruses. Actually, it's probably could actually be super crazy. But human beings, we have things like we get sick, or we get grumpy, or we have emotional issues. We really struggle with perception. I can't even be like, I hammer every video with the word look up RAS, look up RAS, look up RAS, look up RAS. You have to understand that for people at a high level, we're looking at just about everybody we meet, and we're watching your RAS. And it's not good what we're seeing. I'm just being real with you. It is not good what you're seeing. Selective perception is so skewed, and most people never learn to question their own perception. And then you have to be careful about teaching that to people, because if somebody goes halfway to that degree of discernment, but they don't go all the way, like if you don't come out the other side of that with clear discernment in life, and you only go halfway, then all that you're left with is still bad discernment, but now you're just questioning yourself all the time. So now you're like, I don't even trust myself, right? No. The key with learning what your RAS is doing is you have to go all the way with it and then land the plane, right? It's like people who learn certain things about, say, attraction, and they learn the gist of it, but they never learn how to actually use it, and now they're just mad and salty. You ever seen that? People that are just super mad and salty because they learned the truth about attraction, or, whatever approximation of the truth that we've been able to figure out, which is pretty incredible in the last couple of decades. They learn the truth of it, and then they see a lot of the kind of messed up stuff that goes on, but they don't know how to put themselves on the winning side of that equation because they lack the will to do so, and therefore they just sit there salty about it rather than actually landing the plane. So in the same way, every single one of you who I'm talking to, I'm tracking your RAS. I'm tracking what your paradigm is, what your belief system is, where your RAS is going, how you're rationalizing. And it's the funniest thing in the world, to be honest with you. It's super duper duper funny. But I love human beings. Like, I can see the flaws, I see the illogic, I see all of it, and I love you even more for that. I love you even more for that because you're on your journey, and I love that. And I'm here to help with that too. And I'm on my journey too. So, I keep iterating my understanding every year as well. But for a computer, they're not dealing with all that heaviness. They're seeing things very, very cut and dry. So if that's the case, what is it that human beings have that a computer doesn't have? And you've got to start asking yourself that. And these are very, very potent questions. So something like being connected to your higher power, I've known about this for years. Like, for example, I've been saying since I'm about 22 or 23, a pandemic's going to come. I've been saying that since I'm 22 or 23. You want to know why I said that? Because I would read different books, and they would talk about the 1918 pandemic. I read about it, and then I'd go tell my friends about the 1918 pandemic. You know the most crazy thing when you read about the 1918 pandemic, the Spanish flu? You learn that apparently more people died from that than World War I. I remember reading that when I was in my early 20s and telling all my friends about it. I've been prepping for that for years. Well, I also read about AI. I understood quickly, okay, AI is going to become a thing. So I started asking myself questions. What is it that we have as human beings when AI comes? I would ask myself that. What are those things as your connection to your higher power? That ability to connect to something that a machine cannot is something very, very powerful. The capacity for love, things like that. These are actually unique advantages that we have to double down and 1,000x down on in the next 20 or 30 years. So it's also things like having a unique personality or things like that. But realize human beings very, very soon are about to become the equivalent of, you ever seen those books that are real leather-bound books that are handwritten in calligraphy or things like that, and they cost like $500? Your labor is about to become that. Like this thing that you don't really need, but is cute, is kind of like a I don't know, maybe if you had a taxidermied head of a wolf or something on your wall, that's you and your labor in the future. It's just this sort of thing of the past, like a museum, is basically where it's going. Now, when you start thinking about that, it's interesting, isn't it? Because now you start thinking, look at all the dumb things I waste my time on. Look at all the dumb thoughts that I have in my head. Look at all the useless crap that I think about. Look at all the wasted time and energy. Understand that human beings, the degree of wasted time and energy that we have, what percentage of your life would you say is you're really doing anything that is either making you happy, making you laugh and have joy for life? In other words, taking in life and the beauty that it is at a high level. What is doing that? Or how about learning? Or how about making money? Which is the basic things that you should be doing, right? You should either be learning, making money and expanding your abilities and so, making money, or maybe getting more fit for some people, or expanding health, wealth, relationship, higher purpose, expanding, knowledge expanding, laughing, or taking in life. And things like sadness are normal as well. You should have moments where you're sad, I believe, and have moments that are hard and process them and don't run from them and let that out. But that's not the kind of sadness most people have. Most people are just getting mad about stupid, petty things that are completely, utterly, utterly irrelevant in the bigger picture. Real sadness where you grieve about something real, I think, is beautiful. But that's not the kind of sadness that you mostly are seeing. You're seeing people that are just, the word for most people, sadness would probably be better ascribed as petty. Very, very petty. What's the definition of pettiness? It's when you have all the gifts right in front of you, but all that you can focus on is some tiny little detail that annoys you. Like you have the incredible opportunities of life right in front of you, but you just sit there whining and whinging about some little detail that you just get stuck on and you loop on. You're just looping and looping and looping. So in my mind, you can actually think about spirituality as just really opportunity costs. That's really what it is. Opportunity costs. And the word what else? Say what else? What else? Say it again. What else? Say it again. What else? That's really the essence to me of spiritual growth. People that are stuck in this kind of low vibration, derpy haze, some people call it Luciferian Satanism, whatever you want to call it. People that are stuck in that, they're really in the same physical reality that you are or that a very, very high level person is, but it's where their mind is focusing. They're able to quickly see where the value is in something, what the actual value is, and what all the noise around it is just crap. In other words, most things in life, if this is the full picture, there's like this tiny little seed of densified value, right? Funny, I went to that. Tiny little seed of densified, that's another thing you should be doing. And it's a tiny little seed of densified value, and can you focus just on that densified value, and then every single other thing just falls by the wayside, is how you want to think about it. So understand that somebody like, say, Michael Jordan, there's very, very little movement wasted. Very, very little movement wasted. For him to become the best of probably, I'm partial to Kobe, but Jordan is largely regarded as the best of all time, even though I'm partial to Kobe. But I'm biased because I would see Kobe all the time in all of his games. But basically, there'd be no movement wasted. Every little movement that wasn't useful was gotten rid of in many ways, right? And also no wasted emotion. Think of all that wasted emotional capital, wasted movement capital, focus capital. And what are things like drugs and alcohol, or maybe prostitution or gambling or things like that? What are they really meant to do? They're meant to just burn your time, but give you nothing back at all. It's meant to basically prostitute your mind to give you this little fix of negative energy that you interpret as positive energy, but all that it is just numbing you from the trauma that you're in, that you haven't processed, and then that feels good relatively to the trauma that you're stuck in, but it's not actually pleasurable. It just feels that way, and it feels real at the time. So, but I can promise you on the other side of that, it just feels dirty. It's not really anything. So once we start looking at these efficiencies, that's when you realize, okay, well, I've got to start removing those. You think, I've got to start removing those. But the problem is, how do you remove all that? It's very, very difficult to do that, right? And an awareness training like this is really meant to shove this pie in your face, isn't it, right? It's like everybody in here, we all feel this, right? We all feel it. I'll also be like super blunt with you. I wouldn't say this like in a regular social setting, but if we're gonna like just go be very deep and be very real, I think it's appropriate to, if I'm just being honest, I think it's appropriate to sit down and cry at how pathetic your life has been. Yeah. I've done that many times. I've sat there and just sat in my face, and like it just becomes apparent to me like I've wasted years of my life on this. I've got this beautiful opportunity in front of me right now, and this life that's in front of me, and I'm wasting it on stupid stuff. It could be on caring too much what people think of you. It could be on allowing yourself to have these horrible habits that burn your time and energy, wasting your potential, all these different things. And I've definitely had these moments where I just sit there and I'm like, I want to be cleansed of this. That's, to be honest, how I feel. Again, I don't talk, when I'm with my friends, I don't talk, when I'm with my friends, my main goal is like to act like the biggest idiot possible, to make really, really, really dumb jokes, a lot of them like really nasty jokes that we just think are funny, and to just look around and just like love life and party and have a good time. That's another part of life, right? So I don't think that you should be always in this mode, like you just walk around in life like, oh, it's just like breaking down, like I'm wasting my life, and then having to be some kind of cartoon character, self-parody superhero. I'm not saying that. But in the same way that if you were to go to the gym, you don't go to the gym 16 hours a day. Maybe you go to the gym an hour a day, 4 days a week or something like that. Maybe there's a half hour a day, maybe an hour a day where you pause and you look at your life and you start doing auditing. Or maybe what you do is you come to an immersive experience like this where you go for a couple of days, or maybe mentoring that we do from anywhere in the world or things like that, or various programs that we do, and you sit down for a period of time and you really look at it. That's the idea of getting altitude in your life. It's like, right, in life, it's like you're, in the middle of the street and there's the street sign. A program like this where you get altitude, which you can also initiate that on yourself at home, you pull back from your life and you see kind of the Google Maps. You see everything and you see where it's going. By the way, if you're looking at your map of your life, where is it ultimately going, as a heads up? Death! So that's another thing too. So realize that you're going to get there either way. That's another wake-up call too. So what you'll realize is that there's a number of different ways that you can shut out all this trash and garbage. One of them, which is critical, is trauma release. And that's because we get negative experiences in our lives. And what winds up happening is as we have these negative experiences, it's almost like, imagine that you're this balloon who's meant to ascend. You're actually naturally meant to ascend, really effortlessly. But then all the satanic little minions come in, and they kind of shoot this harpoon gun at you that has a rope on it, right? And by the way, that rope also has like a syringe in it and just sucks energy out of you and shoves it back into Satan. Imagine that, okay? And it's like that, right? So you're going up, and then they goes like that, and bing, and it gets you. It's like a spear right in you, right? And then it just sucks energy out of you. And then you're kind of like, like that. And then like, got them, right? Shoots in another one. Shoots in another one. And you're traumatized now. So what happens is that you begin to resonate with that degree of trauma. You now resonate with that. So now all of a sudden, your perception is colored by that trauma energy. And that trauma energy begins to reside in you. And now what happens is that your discernment is skewed because you can only see that which is going to further traumatize you. But the key here is it feels completely real. It feels completely real. So if you just look at this at a base level, just go find someone who you can just tell is very negative. Somebody who's very negative. Usually they're quite broke, right? Now the joke is, what came first, the chicken or the egg? When the person is broke, and then they're negative, what does it look like the reason is that they're negative? Because they're broke, right? And then you say, hey, start being more positive. And what do they say to you when they're flat broke? But I'm broke, and all these people did it to me. Because the core essence of negative energy is being at the effect, not at the cause. That is the main key thing. People at the highest levels are completely convinced they're at the cause of their life, and people at low levels are completely convinced they're at the effect of life. Look, the truth is, it's always in the middle. I could get hit by a car tonight just because I'm like, I'm at the cause and high vibration or whatever I'd want to think of myself as. That's not going to stop a car from randomly hitting me necessarily, right? Maybe be a little more aware and see it, but it's not going to necessarily stop it from hitting me. So bad things do happen to good people. But if you ever remember back around the mid-2000s, the law of attraction or the movie The Secret got very trendy. You remember that? And of course, now you got all these derpers thinking that they're manifesting a parking spot, which is so sad because it's always the low-level fans of any beautiful movement that ruin the perception of it, isn't it, right? It's like you have this core truth. I mean, it's like the Bible. You know, you see people on the street and they're like, come to God, you're gonna burn. And you look at them, you're like, I think you're gonna burn, really, and you're probably burning now, and you suck. You know what I'm saying, right? But so they actually actively serve a function in driving people away from reading the Bible. Why is that? Because they're so weird that you just think, I don't want to be like that. I don't want to be like that. They don't realize they're actually driving people away from it. Like the weird sign on the street shaming everybody is just them wanting to have a unique identity that they get it and nobody else gets it, and that they're going to go to heaven while everybody else burns. That's really what's going on there. It's actually very, very sad. If, you know, the church, in my mind, and I love the church, but to me, and I'm just being honest, and I hate saying this, and maybe I'd have a different perspective of this, they've done a lot of great stuff, but I feel like they've really let us down, if I'm being honest with you, because they didn't get in there, they didn't have a true reality check where they understood what it means to really compete. And so what wound up happening was all this dark, deranged stuff actually took precedence over the church. It really did. Who wants to just go to church at this point? Very, very few people do. Why? Because they didn't make it cool. They didn't adapt to modern day. They didn't use modern tools to actually get the word out about these things. Instead, they sat there kind of nerdy, like, Shannon, meh, just like, oh, you're bad, like not actually connecting with people that are trendy. And then what winds up happening is you get the opposite of that. And I think it's actually very, very sad. And then as we lose a lot of our foundational core values, you start seeing what's happening in 2020. It's actually incredibly sad. It's really, really sad what happened in 2020, because as a side point, in life, what you're going to see is that whatever seeds you plant are eventually going to sprout. They're eventually going to sprout. It could take decades, but they eventually sprout. Bad seed, bad fruit. The degeneration of the morality, and I'm not the most perfect moral person, but I'm just saying the degeneration of the morality in our society resulted in 2020, to where people are so demoralized that the truth can be sitting right in front of them, and they just keep their head down because they don't care. They just want to kind of just get through life, keep your head down, don't say the truth, even though we all know the truth, and they wouldn't say it. And that's literally where we got to. And understand why this is so bad as well. Again, a bit of a side point. We'll get back on it. I don't do this, but the majority of businesses, what they do is they keep raising the price until they start to lose demand. Do you understand that? And then they also lower the value until they lose demand. Now, if you can hear my voice right now, I literally time these events to use every last drop of my voice. I bring in the best other people to help teach you. We do everything. My goal is to maximize the value and keep prices down. But most businesses, what they do is they want to minimize value and keep prices higher. That's what DNA does. You realize that, right? Get the most amount of energy with the least amount of output energy, right? Do you understand that? Do you understand that? Yes. Do you understand that? Yes. Okay? Most amount of input, least amount of output. That's how DNA works. The good side of that is what? Why is that good in some ways? There is things that's good about that.
It's efficient.
Creates efficiencies. It's amazing, right? Airplane, cell phone, all those kind of things. That's to create efficiencies. Great, amazing. But the downside of it is that if there's not a boundary, that process doesn't stop. The process of that I just described is designed to keep going until there's a boundary, right? Well, if way back in the day, there was this whole entire, in my view, divinely inspired philosophy that created what we have now, those people, they were very serious about it. But we've been riding off of the fumes of that for a couple hundred years, and we are no longer a serious people at all. We are not, right? We don't care. And so once people realize, wait a minute, we can just push the boundary on them, 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 and everybody just goes, okay. Yeah, and it just becomes a learned helplessness, and we just adapt to it, and it happens again and again and again. That never stops. There's no limit. There's no bottom. It will never stop. Do you understand that? It's never going to stop. Do you understand? Yeah. It's never going to stop. Until there's a boundary, it's never going to stop. Ever. That's the nature of life. It will never stop. There's no bottom. And one thing I've learned about low vibration negative energy is there is definitely no bottom. In fact, when some psycho, horrific nightmare person runs out and starts harming people, what do? They harm as many people as they can, and then what do? They do it on themselves, right? That energy just wants death. Do you understand? It just wants death. And it wants to drag everybody they can into hell with it. And that energy goes right in you. And instead of you seeing the glory of the world and the beauty and the opportunity and the growth and the expansion and the love and the creation, instead of seeing that, it goes like that. And then you say, well, this person annoyed me. And that person didn't respect me. And that person cut me off. And I didn't like this. And like this other thing that was supposed to happen didn't happen. And like, I don't like that other thing. And da-da-da, and da-da-da, and da-da-da, and da-da-da, and da-da-da. And now you're walking through a park, beautiful trees everywhere, and you're just stuck in your head in this contracted little reality is basically what's going on. Missing life. And understand that more important even than making cash, and you should make cash because that's part of real life, and I'll teach you that too, and I've been teaching it, but in addition, it's the ability to even perceive life. I've worked with some of the most wealthy people in the entire world, one-on-one, up close, and I can tell you, many of them are really open to life, and it's incredibly inspiring. It's been amazing, but many are also so closed off to life, they're in a living hell in a palace. I've seen it to where people who I've worked with that are very wealthy are in like homes that are like palaces while they're with their spouse screaming at each other every single day in a living hell. Now you hear that and you think, oh, that's terrible, that's terrible. Everybody here is in this incredible country and you do the same types of stuff. And people in the third world would think that they wouldn't do that if they came here, right? It's never ending. It's a human condition because whether you're rich or poor, that little demonoid goes like that and it gets in you and it disrupts your discernment. And then what it does is it starts implanting energy into you and the tail starts to wag the dog. Say that word, the tail wags the dog. Say it again. The tail wags the dog. One last time. Tail wags the dog. Yeah, so what happens is that this energy, the energy that you allow into yourself is something that you're meant to be able to access and ride if you want. But what happens is that energy takes over your entire consciousness and it actually begins to run you. It's really wild. And so the ways that we can begin to get out of that is we have to have boundaries. Life is about opportunity costs. It's about focusing on the right thing, and it's about creating boundaries. And so it's very, very difficult to have a boundary to every single temptation. There's too much coming at you for you to manually manage your focus all the time. This is one of the things that we learned in teaching social skills and attraction is that you can mechanically teach somebody how to have eye contact, how to use their voice, how to have body language. But what happens is that if you don't change what's inside, they can prop themselves up and puff themselves up for a minute and they go right back down. That's what was happening to you earlier. You puff yourself up, but because the inner hasn't changed yet, that we're working on that today even, then what winds up happening is then as soon as we're not puffing you up, back down. Now, at the same time, I think people who only work on inner and not outer, that has its own host of problems as well. That's why you work on both. But that's another problem as well. So in the same way that you can't just fix every little communication like eye contact, voice, chest, like it's like a robot. It has this, they call that the uncanny valley feel, where it's like almost real but not quite, and it's kind of gross and weird. Not you, I'm saying, but you know. So the point being, we can't change that just mechanically, although it is powerful to take on the physiology actually. So it's good to do that as an exercise. But long term, you have to have both the physiology and the focus and the belief system, what's going on inside yourself. But in the same way with having boundaries, there's only one way that I've ever really, really seen to have those boundaries. There's only one way that I've seen. What do you think it is? Can anybody guess? Purpose. Purpose. Because what purpose does is it demagnetizes all of those little things. It's like if you had like shot up in you, but then let's just imagine, feel like as like a funny cartoon in our minds. Imagine if from above, somebody shot down a nether rope, but it was thicker and stronger than all those little ropes, like that, and it's pulling you up. Well, with purpose, what you're doing is rather than trying to take off every little thing, because what's happening is you're in the balloon, and they're going, they're jumping on you faster than you can take them off. They're jumping on you faster than you can take them off. It's like you're in a river, and there's this pile of gold up here, and piranhas keep coming on, and you keep trying to take them off, but at a certain point, what happens? They more come than you can take off, and then it just eats you. If you would have just accepted it and just been like, this hurts and it sucks, but I'm gonna keep going, eventually maybe they would shake off on their own, but either way you get to the gold, you'd be a little beat up. Hey, that's life. Well, in the same way, if you're getting, if they're going like that, you've got to just get your own spear gun out and just go like that with a big thick one and just pull yourself up until those ones pop off. That's not a perfect analogy, but it's just sort of a cartoonish way of, I don't think that this even ever exists in reality. I'm just making the point that that's a way of imagining it just in your fantastical mind, in your imagination. Quickly, yep.
Is your strong gun, is that belief?
It's that higher purpose that you have and something that compels you, something that says to you, okay, this isn't worth it. I don't want this. I don't want this around me. And people who lack that, they're the ones that come to me in coaching, and feel free to do this. I'm here to coach you, but they come to me and they say, well, my significant other bothered me, or, this person at work bothered me, and I can see that they lack that sense of purpose to where every single thing is bothering them. And that doesn't mean that I don't get bothered. I feel it too. I haven't transcended some other dimension by any means. The way that you want to think about it is that ultimately, you want to have some kind of a higher purpose, which then drives you forward and propels you forward, and you want to learn that art and science of just letting things go. Just say the word, let things go. Let things go. Okay? The problem is what happens in life is almost everything becomes this partially true statement. Right? So, maybe there's some problem that you're having, and then you're thinking, well, I don't want to resist that because it's just going to persist. The map is not the territory. There's a lot of things that you probably should resist. Don't get me wrong. It's a loosely true statement. It's like the law of attraction. You don't attract what you want, you attract what you are. Is that always true? It's just always true. Oh, let's just say every person that got killed in a random car accident, they just brought that on themselves. Look, maybe that is true, I don't know, but at that point you're getting into a sort of fantastical belief system, and something that you might believe, but you're getting into more of like a belief system more so than just looking at reality and honestly analyzing it, okay? Perhaps it's true, perhaps their soul needed a car accident to send them to some other dimension. I don't know. I'm not in a position to know, and anyone who claims they are is probably lying. But as a general understanding, that can absolutely be true, okay? The law of attraction. Same thing with whatever you resist persists. So what you want to do is, in life, there's exceptions to different rules, but you also want to understand these general principles, okay? Now, going from that standpoint, realizing how much opportunity that there is in life, seeing what's in front of you, how do you begin to detect what those things are and learn how to have discernment? You've got to understand how to detect it, because you're going to have these potholes that come to you in life, these different pitfalls and potholes that are going to come up. And you're going to watch your friends go down these nightmare things. Like, you are going to watch all your friends make really, really dumb decisions and have to live with the consequences of those decisions. You're going to watch society collectively do it, and you're going to see yourself do it. So how do you start making better decisions? How do you begin to identify what are better decisions? In my personal experience, generally speaking, there's the book, The Tao Te Ching, and that book, to me, describes everything really to perfection. I think the Tao Te Ching is like the second most popular book behind the Bible or something like that, and there's a reason for that. It's something like that. But that gives it to us, and here's what it is. It's that awareness that comes when you're just present, okay? You want to know how all of you know this? Because I believe that every one of you in this room has probably worked on some of the social skills that I've taught for the last couple of decades. You've tried it. And what do you already know? When you're just present, you always do the perfect thing. You always do. You say the perfect thing. You do the perfect thing, right? It's like someone texts you. Someone who you really like texts you. And if you go in your mind and you feel these emotions, you're like, should I text this back? Or should I text this back? Or, and then does it ever work? It always doesn't work. But when you're just in the flow and you're like, you get it? Back in it, it's always the perfect thing. It's the perfect thing every time. Does that mean that they always respond? No, because maybe it was not meant to be responded to. That might sound like a cop-out, but in truth, there's no reality where everyone always responds. But it is always the perfect thing that you did on your end. So I've learned that to where I've just seen in my life, whenever I'm stuck up in my feelings about something, whenever I'm in scarcity, whenever I'm putting the creation before the creator, I know I'm going to make a mistake. And I've done it many times. We saw what happened with Julian back in 2014, to where he was allowing an energy to run him, the energy of validation and so on and so forth. And I've made similar mistakes myself. So you want to ask yourself, what are you infused with? What is running you? And from that, you can begin to recognize what is the right and wrong decision. I'm going to show you a little bit about how to look at somebody's eyes and see what's running them. You ever heard me say that I can tell what's running someone by looking in their pupils? Yeah. Okay, so I get asked about this so often, so I thought, okay, I'm just going to make a little list, and this list is not going to cover it comprehensively. It bothers me because it's so utterly obvious to me, but then people come to me as if I have a psychic power to read something when I do not. I have just basic common sense, but people think it's some kind of weird, psychic power or something like that. I don't know how they think I got this. So I'm gonna try to break it down to you in a way that will both add to what it is that we're talking about here. I'll probably need the plug as well at some point, but it will add to what it is that we're talking about here. Okay. So I'm going to frame this in the following ways that we've been talking about. Do you remember what we talked about? We said derper to executor to transcendent. Remember we talked about that? Yeah. I'm going to do that, but I'm going to add in a couple other categories. I prepared this for you. Another one is a baby, which is unconditioned consciousness. I'll give this all to you later. And I'm also going to add a woo-woo person, a woo-woo spiritual person. And I'm also going to add psychopaths. So that will actually allow you to see it from different things. So understand that we are being energized by different forms of energy. Different forms of energy enliven us. Different forms of energy, thank you, allow us to focus. It controls our perception, our energy. So in the same way that you would drink caffeine and that caffeine would energize you, in the same way, we are being run by different forms of energy. By the way, many people who you'd bring here, let's just say for the sake of argument, really this is up to you and your own opinion of it. It's not up for me to say. But for the sake of argument, imagine if this could be one of the most helpful events that anybody were to ever attend in their entire life. And it would completely change your life. Do you want to know what most of your friends would do if you brought them here? They would begin finding things wrong with it because they're not ready to ascend. Now, that sounds crazy because what can that sound like I'm saying when I say that? What does that kind of sound like I'm saying? It sounds like I'm making a weird excuse for why they don't get it because really what I'm doing sucks or really what I'm doing has problems with it, which everything in life sucks and everything in life has problems with it. The question is the ratio of suck to good stuff, right? So there's always something that you can focus on as a way to block your own ascendance. There's always something that a person can focus on to block themselves. And when they intuitively feel that some amazing things are going to happen, they'll often run away. You want to know why that is? because their system isn't built to digest all that awesomeness. Their vision isn't built to look directly at the sun. You should never look directly at the sun. It's a metaphor, okay? So I will always know when somebody in the room, if I'm getting really, really good, if I'm on a roll and I'm saying something that is really, really helpful, I will see the people who are at the lowest begin to nod off and fall asleep. I'll see them begin to look at their phone. I'll see them begin to get distracted. I'll see them begin to fidget and look away. And I can always see the most positive people in the room will get super focused, super energized, and it's like caffeine to them. It's like crack cocaine to them. So I know I'm on a roll. You know, there's certain enemies that you want to have. Does that make sense? Yeah. If you're disliked by certain people, that's not an insult. That's a compliment. That's a compliment. I've had many times where I'm recording videos on the street, and if I get really positive and uplifting, a homeless person might come by and just throw a bottle at me or something like that. They feel, because there's a thing in them, it's like, and they just like throw a bottle. It happens all the time. If I'm being kind of negative, they're like, yeah. Like say I get in a role, like, you know, things kind of suck. They're like, yeah. But if you get positive, they're just like, they just throw stuff at you, right? Super duper common.
That happened last night with people were dancing some sort of egg.
Yeah, and sometimes it can be random too. Look, or it could be real too. Look, I'm not a perfect person. I do things that are wrong and bad. I'm not saying otherwise. I'm not trying to say that any time that someone didn't like my stuff, it's because it wasn't my fault. I think I make mistakes. I'm a human being and I make mistakes. But I think there still exists a trend that you could clearly identify that I could just say from common sense, where if I talk to everybody in a room over several days, and the people who give me really dense, heavy vibes, usually when I become really positive, they start to zone out. And the people that, when I'm around them, I feel good and I feel energized, they're super awesome, they tend to be really locked in on what it is. So people often say to me, they're like, how come your videos aren't more popular? I take that as a compliment. I would be offended if my videos were super popular. That would be weird to me. However, I have had videos that are super popular, and it's videos that people can complain about. And those have done millions of views. So, yeah, that's real. You know, I can get media about people complaining, but I'll never get media about me staying awake until 9 in the morning, a student crying in my arms while they have a transformation and completely change their life. That won't get media, will it, right? But what will get media is some cut out of context thing that I never said at all, but cut out of context, looks like I said something and flips people out. That will get media. Now, going from there, the first one, I'm gonna break this down as far as what's energizing you. First thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to read some notes that I took about the Tao Te Ching, because I think it's just a sort of simple way of putting it. So these are just some notes I read. I might kind of stumble through these because I wrote them down out of a YouTube video. The Tao deals with what is permanent in us. It speaks of a possible inner greatness, and here's the main key, and an equally possible inner failure. Okay? Again, I'll say that again. It speaks of a possible inner greatness and an equally possible inner failure, which are both indelibly written into our very structure as human beings. I'm happy to refer you to the YouTube video if you want as well. We aren't our labels, but being called upon to occupy a precise place in the cosmic order. Now, if you're somebody who's very, very logical, I need you to just get out of that for a second. It's okay. It's safe to get out of that. This is woo-woo stuff. Just do it as a thought experiment, okay? The balloon thing wasn't real either. It's just a thought experiment. We can be good empiricists and be scientific, but we can also think more broadly and cast a wider net and speculate on things as well. We can do both, right? We can walk and chew bubble gum at the same time. Now, the Tao Te Ching helps us to see how the fundamental forces of how the cosmos itself are mirrored in our own inner structure. It's like you are a universe in your own inner structure. It invites us to try to live in direct relationship to all these forces. Metaphysically, the term Tao refers to the way things are. Psychologically, it refers to the way human nature is constituted, the deep dynamic structure of our being. Ethically, it means the way human beings must conduct themselves with others. Spiritually, it refers to the guidance that is offered to us, the methods for searching for the truth that have been handed down by the great sages of the past. Something mysteriously formed before heaven and earth, ever present and in motion. This is what they're describing the Tao now. Being great, it flows. It flows far away, and having gone far, it returns. It flows outward and descends into the creation of the universe. we are told of a movement of return. All creation returns to the source, but the initial coming into being of creation is to be understood as a flowing outward from center. Every created entity ultimately is what it is and does what it does owing to its reception to this energy. Man, and we'll go with humans, are equally called upon to receive that energy consciously and is called to allow their actions to manifest that force. And now here's the main key, because I know that a little bit of that's hard to follow. We're also like hour 50 of the seminar at this point, so my brain is sort of misfiring a little bit here. I apologize in my voice. Here's the main key. The ego, the ordinary initiator of action, is an ephemeral construction which is formed by factors operating far beneath the level of source, and in the unenlightened state of awareness represents a kind of blockage, an impediment to the interplay of cosmic forces. Because of our identification of ourselves with the ego, what we call action or doing cuts us off from the conscious reception of source energy in our body and actions. Humans are then a microcosm of the universe. Humans are individual incarnations of this whole. The good, happiness, and very meaning of your life is to live in direct correspondence with the whole, and then to act precisely as the universe is and moves. The secret to living is to open ourselves to the great flow of fundamental forces that constitute the ultimate nature of the universe, the movement of descent from source and the return. Empty yourself of everything. Let the mind become still. Big key there. Empty yourself of everything. Let the mind become still. Everything grows and falls and returns to source. Be the observer of that. Returning to source is stillness, which is the way of nature. In other words, if we simply still our minds and open up perceptions, we receive that force and we resonate with right action easily and effortlessly. At the center of our being, you know who you are and you know what to do. Receive that energy consciously and allow your actions to manifest that force. So what you want to be doing is basically audit your thoughts, behaviors, life associations, lifestyles, habits that you have, and see if it resonates with that energy or not. That basic understanding, that was sort of a complex, convoluted way of saying, get present to the moment, okay? It's a convoluted way of saying that, get present. There's an energy there that you can allow into yourself. But when the ego becomes an impediment to that energy, it cuts you off from source, and you enter into what you might call the land of hungry ghosts in Eastern philosophy. And so then what happens is that you think you need all of these other things in order to enliven yourself, to focus yourself. So why is it that we do things like, say, drink alcohol? We do it to shut off all that noise in our heads and to feel like we know who we are. On some level, we want to feel, we crave for all these things pulling at us, and we crave for the weight of existence to go away. There's this general weight of existence, isn't there? Everybody resonate with that? Yeah. There's a general weight of existence. There's these forces pulling at our minds all the time. Why do we drink or get high? To shut that up, to escape it. And in a weird way, for many people, when they get high, they actually feel a spiritual insight from it because they finally get rid of the weight of existence. They finally feel a core center point that is being propped up by the drug or alcohol or psychedelic. It is propping that up. It's showing what their mind could be without all the noise and the weight. And then it allows the mind and liberates the mind to think outside the box, to not just have this identity, but to think beyond that. The problem is that people keep going back to the well and they keep doing it again and again rather than integrating the experience. That's why I don't personally resonate with it, because 99% of my friends that are into it, they do it again and 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 again, and then they start microdosing and they keep going and going, rather than taking ownership of that process consciously, which we have the ability to do. As an experience itself, I think super cool, but you've got to also integrate, transcend, and leave it there. It's meant to be a tool. It's not meant to be the thing. Now, from that same standpoint of realizing that we're all energized by different forms of energy, some people are what you'd call poop eaters. They just love to eat feces, and other people want to eat that tasty, present energy, is the way that you want to think about it. So I want you to watch people when you see them out and watch what lights them up. Watch what they give their focus to. Watch where their attention goes. Where attention goes, energy flows. And begin to realize how they create their own, and say this word with me, self-generated resistance. And say the whole thing, self-generated, say it with me, self-generated resistance. Okay, we've got it. Self-generated resistance. So what they do is that they get traumatized in life. They then begin to resonate with low energy. They then begin to only perceive things that feed that low energy. And so this is why, then they take action from there based on that scarcity and then further reinforcing that reality. And they do this again and again and again and again and again and again. And this is why human beings can live in a living heaven or living hell. And I've been around both. I coach both. I'm always coaching. I've coached my entire adult life, most of it, like just nonstop, crazed rampage of coaching. So I'm coaching people at a low level, at a high level, and I'm going deep, and I'm seeing what they're dealing with. So I see this stuff clear as day. It becomes beyond clear as day when you see it. It's like if you never knew what a congruence test was with, say, attraction, and then you see it, and you know what it is. It's the exact same thing. So let's first look at the eyes of somebody. And I'm going to say what the appearance is. I'm going to say what kind of energy they're tapped into. And then I'm going to say the choke points. Because what happens is that we get choke points of energy. And this is why, by the way, many people that are sociopathic or very, very low or dark are attracted to people with positive energy, but want to mess with them and disrupt them and vandalize them because they want to take energy from it. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay, this is why, our leaders like Gandhi and others are probably big targets of assassination because the world feels what they're doing. Why is it that the greatest people that have shown that transcendence in our history, most have been assassinated? Why is that? I attribute it to this as well as politics. So, but they also, in my view, are being called back to God early, and they're lucky. But that's a point of view. And I don't think that should happen to them, and it should be stopped. Now, let's continue. A baby, what is the appearance of their eyes? What I've written here is visibly filled with energy and brimming with life. Their eyes look like that, but they're also naive. Brimming with life, but naive. Much like a dog. Dogs are so present and happy, but they're also naive. Really, the beauty in life is when you can have those kind of eyes, but without being naive. You've done your journey and you've rediscovered that, but from awareness, including the pain of life, but still rediscovering that. So it's a naive energy. So I have kids. I have a 2-year-old in my house, and he's just brimming with energy, but he is just looking everywhere. He doesn't know the pain of life yet. What is the appearance? What I just described. What is the energy? Tapped into source, tapped into the Tao. Choke points to that energy. None yet. There's no ego, and there's no real trauma yet. I've raised my children that way. So appearance, visibly filled, brimming with life, and naive. Energy, tapped into source, choke points, none yet. No ego, no trauma. Now let's go derper. What is the look of the eyes of a derper? Glazed over because the energy is choked out. They've given in to the trauma. The energy is now choked out, and they are glazed over. And it's a visible look that you'll see. And anything that would involve them having to exert themselves, they look away from. Anything that would involve them being more positive and awake, they often look away from. They tend to look towards things that will make them numb, allow them to be on autopilot, allow them to be told what to do, and rationalize it's okay. So what gives them energy, what gives energy to a derper is autopilot. Being on autopilot, they like that. Being at the center, being numb, being told what to do, and rationalizing that that's okay because so many other people are doing it. Also, in a capitalist society, why is it that nobody is calling out this epidemic? Why? Because you lose money when you do it. And you put yourself in harm's way when you do it. You willfully put your head in the guillotine when you do it. And that's because we lack real leadership. We lack real leadership in many different cases. Real leadership is not pumping up some trendy cause that if you look behind, is not even what it appears. That's not real leadership. Real leadership is doing what's right no matter what. How many real leaders do we have like that? Not a lot. Very few. Real leadership. As we sit here with only around 300 million people here, and there's a place over there with over 1 billion, and what has their leader said they want to put here?
Social credit. Social credit.
They've already done that.
What did they
just through companies. Equally, it's the exact same outcome.
Communism.
What has the leader said? You think he's joking? You think that's a joke? Hey, just kidding. He's just joking. I'm going to own your country. He said to our leader, we're going to own your country in 15 years. I mean, it's funny, but it's not funny. We need real leadership in the church, in government, and regular people. All right, what happened at the end of Rome? Look around. Okay, so Derper, glazed over. The energy's choked out, cut off from source. Energy, autopilot, numb, told what to do, rationalizing it's okay. Choke points. What is choking that energy? What is choking the Tao, as we're going to look at it as thought experiment? Trauma. And then here's the big one. They consume fuel that gives them energy on the front end and depletes them on the back end. It's a trick. Almost everything they're consuming, if you look at a ratio, put this in your body, what does it give you? What does it take from you? They're putting things in their body, all that, media that gives them something on the front end and takes on the back end. So if you remember that graph that I was doing the other day, remember all this? That thing, it's almost like good. So then you want it, but on the inside it's a poison pill. And what happens is that the more that you consume, the more that it shuts off your digestion system from source. You can't even digest it anymore. You can't digest abundance. You can't digest positivity. So it changes you at a core level. It's a spiritual cancer that is an ailment that probably takes about as long to fix as it did to do the damage. So and the more that society pumps that into people, good luck. So, trauma and fuel that depletes them to numb themselves. And the more that they're in trauma, the more they need to numb themselves. It's like a heroin junkie. Heroin junkie. You do a bunch of heroin, you come off of it, you get super high beyond anything that we'd even feel, super high. Then you come out of it, and you're probably uglier. I hate to say it, but just, like meth. You've probably seen like faces of meth or things like that. Makes you physically a little bit deformed and gaunt. Then you're addicted to drugs now, and your brain doesn't work as well, and you can't focus as well anymore, and you have less money, and your life's falling apart. And then as you're like physically decrepit, and as you are, you've lost your job, and your life is falling apart, and your friends have left you, and you can't focus anymore, and your impulse control center. This is a really big one. The impulse control centers of the brain have been eroded. Say the word impulse control. Impulse control. The impulse control center of the brain's been eroded. So now you have almost no impulse control. You're physically decrepit. Your friends have left you. You've lost your job. What are you just going to keep going back to? All that you are is this piece of biomass that just consumes heroin. You can talk on the surface, but there's no one home. And to cure someone with addiction, because that's a disease, you've actually got to bring that back. You've got to create this new proactive life force in them and bring that back online, and they can't do it themselves. It's really sad, really truly sad. Have you ever seen it up close, which I have? One of the saddest things in the world. Except, are you like that? So, Executor, next up. Appearance in the eyes, shark-like, laser-like, tightening from forcing stress, and stealing their resolve.
Can you repeat that again one more time?
The appearance of an executor, they have shark-like, laser-like eyes, and their eyes are always kind of tightening from forcing through stress and stealing their resolve to inner resistance. And they're tired from having to think for themselves. They're tired. They got to think for themselves all the time. They're not in dirt mode. What energy do they, what gives them energy? Self-generating wins, a strong ego, comparison and validation. What are the choke points? Also often cut off from source. They haven't dealt with the issue that they're cut off from source. The need for validation and wins tightens perception too narrow. so they can't take in energy from source. When you're in that execution mode and you're using you've heard the book Power versus Force, what happens, you get tightened eyes. You'll see me doing this in some videos. What I do is I change my delivery in every video to resonate with the person that I'm trying to connect with. So if I talk about things that are very sad and traumatizing, I'll let myself get sad to connect to somebody in that energy source. When I talk about execution, which is an important stepping stone, ultra important that all of you need to be doing, by the way, all of you in this room need to be doing. Nobody here is past that step. Then going from there, I get into super laser-like focus. I'll look a bit angry. People say, oh, well, how come Owen's looking angry? I do that to show exactly what that looks like to connect to people in that mode. So there's a sort of a laser-like focus that's there. Now, how about transcendent? We talked about a baby. We talked about a derper. We talked about an executor.
You didn't say choke points of execution.
The choke point is they're cut off from source because they need validation from wins. Their energy system is too tightened. They can't take it in. Now I'm going to give the opposite of that before we go to transcendent executor. I'll give that of a woo-woo person, which I meet a lot in California.
Oh yeah, wait, we're on woo-woo?
Yep, next one, a woo-woo person. Their eyes look soft like a diffuse lamp, the opposite of a laser. Brimming with energy, a lot like a baby, actually. But glazed over, similar to a derper. It's a weird vibe the woo-woo people have, right? It's like their eyes are soft and diffused like a baby, brimming with energy like a baby, because they're tapped in. But glazed over in a similar way to a derper because they're using being a spiritual person to numb themselves from the challenge of life. They can't focus their laser, and their eyes will also wander off. Energy, they're connected to source, but choke points, they're ungrounded, and they continually have to rationalize their messed up lives and their lack of achieving their potential and, again, giving their gift in order to stay in that mode. They re-rationalize everything. And I have many friends like this, super happy, so happy, very spiritual, but they've got to numb themselves again and again and again. And most of them also turn to drugs because they're like, well, when I get high, it's like I'm present. I'm spiritual. I look at life, and it's like looking down at some anthill. I'm above the anthill. I'm more than the anthill. I'm connected to source. Cool. You know, can you make a sandwich? I'll manifest a sandwich. No, you won't. Well, I'll get high then. Yeah, you will. Okay, woo-woo person. Really sad, actually. Really sad. They actually cut off people from spiritual growth, and they alienate the most intelligent people. In the same way that a Bible thumper alienates the most people from the Bible, spiritual people alienate most rational people from spirituality. Very sad, isn't it? When you hear about things like getting present to the moment, and then you look it up, and it's some weirdo gazing off in the distance, and you say, I don't want to be that. They're alienating people from it. Last up, we're just calling it, for the sake of description, a transcendent executor. Appearance in the eyes. That same soft, diffused lamp look of a baby or a woo-woo person, but they're also able to focus their eyes like a laser. You'll see it right in the pupil. Brimming with energy like a baby, but also laser-like. Energy, connected to source, enjoys the process of creating wins, uses alignment to source, or the Tao, as we said, to achieve this. Stills the mind, determines what is aligned and what is the highest good, identifies with the whole, and then that motivates right action. It is action from inspiration, not action from desperation and fear. So, if the Tao is the wind and you have a boat, the executor is frantically, the derper is just sitting there doing nothing. The executor is paddling the boat, hard and exhausted. And the person that I'm talking about has the sail up, but will also paddle the boat and will also move the sail. The woo-woo person puts up the sail, spins in circles, and refuses to paddle and refuses to take a hold of the controls. Because that wouldn't be spiritual. What's spiritual is getting high and alienating any rational person from spirituality.
What is the
baby's just crying in the boat or something?
What's that?
The baby.
Baby's having fun, but probably would fall off the boat. So, okay.
Point for the woo-woo.
Well, they're ungrounded, and they have to rationalize staying in a positive state, and their whole lives fall apart. So as their life gets worse and worse and worse and worse, they have to keep rationalizing. and it becomes like this weird Christmas tree lights jammed up in their head. Usually when someone goes to that mode, you see them 10 years later, and they're the most whacked out people you meet out of almost anybody. And then they drive anybody away from anything, any kind of higher thought. They drive away anybody from it. Because you look at that and you say, you're like, I want to be the opposite of that. I don't want to be that. No.
Will we get a copy of this later?
I can give you the notes, sure. Okay, so, however, a choke point for somebody who has both, the Transcendent Executor, which I'm just saying as a name, is that your body wears down eventually. You know, this is me on my 5th day of speaking. I've been on the road for several months now, barely at home at all, cranking events and shooting videos. My body begins to wear out by the 5th day. I probably look like I have more energy than most people, but my body is wearing down, right? So at some point, your body needs what you'd call proactive recovery. At some point, you have to do that. You might get excited to contribute a little bit too much and do too much. Things like that. So the challenge with being just an executor or just a spiritual person, as an example, is that you're plucking the fruit before it's ripe, is really what it is. You're plucking the fruit before it's ripe. You're not letting it fully blossom. So you say, look, if I just keep executing, I can keep winning, right? You're not, and so you're letting that energize you, but you're not allowing the fruit to ripen into what it really could be. Same thing with a spiritual person. They just keep rationalizing, and then that gives them something, but they're plucking it too early. The ultimate version of plucking the fruit before it's ripe, in many ways, is drug addiction, isn't it? Right? They get energized about heroin, but the fruit is very much not ripe. But I'll even give another one, and the word for this I'm going to call inversion. Say that with me, the word inversion. Say it even louder because you need to recognize it. Inversion. What do you think inversion is? Another word for that. Anybody guess? Psychopath. Okay? Psychopaths are people who are connected. In religion, they would say that's Luciferian. They're connected to the devil. In other words, they're completely cut off from God, would be a way of looking at it. It is pure physical consciousness with no higher power to play the rudder or to mitigate it. Now, what do we know about physical consciousness in a shark? What does it do? Just runs around killing things and eating things. Same exact principle. So a psychopath, the lights appear on, but there's nobody home. Or a hardcore narcissist, or people who deal with this stuff. The lights appear on, there's nobody home. They have a glib charm because they're not limited by the insecurities of somebody who has a conscience. Somebody with a conscience, they're thinking, well, I don't know if I want to look too confident because what if that wouldn't serve the person? They're thinking like that, right? Like it's always that father who says, I don't know if I could be a good dad. What if I'm not a great dad? Like, that's why you should be a dad, right? I don't know if I'd make a great boyfriend. That's why you should be the boyfriend. The person that she's going to make her boyfriend is going to be the person who didn't think that.
That's crazy.
Yeah. If you have that dialogue, it means you should do it. You know, if you have insecurities about your product, it's probably because you have a great product. It means you care. Some of those insecurities could be real and prove it, but you know the point, the larger general principle. Psychopath, appearance, often mimicking the facial expressions of regular people, but they have something called the uncanny valley. The uncanny valley is to where if you make computer animation, for example, as it gets more and more real looking, we like it more and more, but if it looks almost perfect but a little off, it actually makes us feel sick. There's movies that have that where they use computer animation. A movie that I actually really like, but it does have a bit of uncanny valley, is Alita Battle Angel. I think it's a 10 out of 10 movie as a side point, but it has a bit of a weird look to it. And I think that was why it wasn't as popular as it could be. It's because it's almost human, so it starts to freak people out. They call that the uncanny valley. Look that up, uncanny valley. Psychopaths often have that. They recognize that they have to put a smile on. They go like that. Some of them get very good at it, actually. Psychopaths do not want to become an empath because they view empaths as limited. They view it like they have every single option on the board and an empath is limited. That's how they perceive it. What gives them energy? Harming others, negating life, vandalizing anything positive, or possible, frankly, anything positive, comparison to others, the pain of others, and often use things like alcohol, cigars, hookers, because they resonate with life-harming fuels. So somebody like a Suge Knight, if you remember him, the owner of Death Row Records, you know he's going to enjoy that drink, cigar, you know, right? And he's getting energy off of, he resonates with death. He resonates with death.
Full records.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Because they have that negative energy in them, they typically eventually destroy themselves. They have a lack of discernment. They don't see the bigger picture. They believe they do. They ironically believe that they are liberated to see things more clearly because maybe they see things more clearly than a derper who's a bit insecure, and they feel not limited by that. But in fact, their discernment is very, very, very skewed. And their RAS is continually being warped and manipulated by the energy that's running them and giving rationalization for it. And they have a lot of very, very bizarre stories. And little things enrage them. If they don't feel like they're the best or things like that, it enrages them. And they need everybody to see it. Or they become enraged. And they can hear this. They can hear this talk, and they can't see it, and they're so deceived that even in hearing this talk, they would think that I, as the description of them, that I'm actually what's being described of them. The very thing that would help them, their brain will manipulate and say, no, that's the person. So they'll say, like, if you're a psycho and I explain to you what a psycho is, you'll think I'm the psycho.
Oh, okay.
And you'll believe it in your mind. You'll believe that in your mind. So the exact thing that would help you, that's where the discernment fails them.
So they don't think themselves as psycho then?
They think that they're not limited like these other empath idiots. And then if they see something super positive, they just absolutely hate it. And you'll also see that they really, really resonate with life extension, things like living forever. And they like that because there's no spiritual component. So it's very, very important for them to upload their brain into a cloud or things like that because they're completely in the physical consciousness. Because there's no spiritual consciousness, see, people in their spiritual consciousness want to be here to give their gift, to do their duty, to experience life as what was intended for them in this experience, and are excited for that next step. Really excited. They're excited to go home. So this is a brief stop off, and they're identified with what continues after. But if there's nothing beyond the body, remember, if the body's just like a shark and that's all that exists, then they wish to upload their consciousness into a cloud. They're going to really love things like AI, different AI enhancements. They love all that stuff. Anything that they feel like keeps them around forever. So ironically, let's think about it this way. If you're somebody who's spiritual, then perhaps, and I can't tell you how you'd feel, but perhaps the way that you'd feel is that freedom, you'd feel that freedom and safety are both very, very important, and you would respect other people's freedom and safety, and you want other people to be safe, and you value life, and you want people to live as long as they can, but you'd still put freedom in front of safety, within reason, obviously, not driving through traffic lights or stupid things like that. We do need a military, otherwise there's a power vacuum. There's definitely rules, but you want to think of it like you're bowling, right? Say that you're bowling. If we're really playing the game of life, kind of like we're playing the game of bowling, then, the lane is at least open and there's a general freedom. So that when we roll the ball, it has the capacity to go one way or the other. But at what point, when we narrow the rails all the way to here, and that our life trajectory is already determined for us, and all that we're doing is just going like that, and the charting of our course in life is so determined, when are we no longer even playing the game? There's a point when that ceases to be bowling. And that's the idea of freedom, is that at a certain point, when you remove too many freedoms under a safety predicate, we're no longer really living life. Our chart's been quoted for us. Our life has been charted, our course has been charted for us. That's what I was saying, that you do get tired eventually, so we're at the end of a long week. But your course has been charted for you to the point that you no longer live in freedom. And when we realize that the purpose of being here is our ascension and the evolution of our soul, then we require that freedom as a prerequisite for us to evolve, for us to make mistakes, for us to be able to have life have wins and losses, and for us to make mistakes, because we understand that life, no matter how long, even 120 years, which would be insane long in this day and age, far past the average, that's still too short. So when we prioritize freedom over safety, on the surface, it would appear that we resonate with death, right? Like the way that would be described by someone is like, oh, what? You just want a bunch of people to die for your freedom? Well, no, that's not what's being said. That's a straw man argument of what's being said. That's not what's being said at all. Nobody's saying to get rid of traffic lights. Nobody's saying not to have a military because you need that to stop a power vacuum. Nobody's saying anything super crazy here. It's not some crazy, exaggerated straw man argument of what's being said. But if you remove all the freedom based on a straw man argument, and you just say and everything becomes safety, well, then what happens next? In 50 years from now, at the rate that we're going now, are we going to allow natural childbirth? At the rate that we're going now, will we allow natural childbirth in 50 years? No. Because they'll do the same rationale. Well, some women die in natural childbirth. Do you want to be responsible for 500,000 women this year that died in natural childbirth? Well, then you wish the death of 500,000 people. Do you think we're going to allow you to drive your own car? No. See, what will probably happen is at first, self-driving cars will come out. A few people will die from misfires here or there, and then they'll hate that, they'll get mad. But eventually, as the Overton window moves, they'll say, well, if you want to drive your own car, it's like you just want to go kill people. They'll say that same thing too. So where does that end? Like, my question is, if we're going to use safety predicates for everything, where's the end point? That's all I want to know. Never. Where's the end point? Where's the end point? When does the person who gets off on control and control fuels them, when is enough for them? When? Never. When? Never. When? Never. There's no bottom. So, okay, and that doesn't mean that some collectivism or people doing things together or some safety is all bad. That's called being extreme. But there's a point to where you're no longer bowling anymore. You know what I'm saying here? And so people who value freedom first actually are the ones who resonate with life because they understand that life, the breadth of life is always too short. Where's the infinity of life? In the depth. And that comes from freedom. That's a prerequisite. So people that are psycho, they really, really, really don't want to die in many cases because the body is all there is. So they appear to resonate with life, but in fact, they resonate with death. The true death, not the appearance of death. So what you want to think about this is, have you ever seen Star Wars with whenever somebody goes to the dark side, their face gets all wrinkly? Because they're consuming the idea of that, it's a metaphor, just by George Lucas. It's just some guy, right? But it's a metaphor that Lucas came up with, or whoever came up with in that they're consuming that dark side energy, but it's aging them. It's rutting them down. Look, we all age, but some people, when they're tapping into that all the time, they're getting power on the front end, but it's messing with their discernment, and it's preemptively aging them. That's why at the end of the prequels, Anakin Skywalker says, I don't trust you. I don't believe you. I think you're the bad one. Because his discernment has been warped by the negative energy. And this is a real thing. And people in that mode love control, and they're very glib, and they will do whatever it takes to rise to the top. And then the people often in real power know that that's who they can easily control. So it is really messed up, right? Like you have the Emperor, and then you have Darth Vader, right? Somebody who has given themselves in that. They've invited that into themselves. They have warped themselves. They have changed it to where they can no longer perceive light. They can only perceive darkness. Some people even believe that there's spiritual entities that we can't even see here. In the same way that there's, that sounds crazy, but like, do you see the 5G reception here? You don't see it, right? Do you see the radio stuff? All this stuff going around, you don't see it. There's things that we can't see. Our perception is within a bandwidth that we perceive as relevant. Some people believe that there's entities that go around, and if you're somebody very positive, they will start trying to clump onto you and distract you. And the really big thing is it's about opportunity cost. So what you resonate with, you start to attract that. If you resonate with that, you start to attract it. Some people believe that. I wouldn't know, but some people believe that. And some people even claim to be able to see them. I wouldn't know, but it's an interesting thing to consider that if you're in a negative mode, that you would start attracting that onto yourself, and then it would start running you. How would you see it in that way as a thought experiment? You ever been mad? You ever been super mad? You just get more and more mad? You ever had that happen? Yes. And then you just get more mad, more mad, more mad, more mad. Your friend even shows you that you're wrong, and they had nothing to be mad about. You're like, whatever, but still. Yeah. You ever have one of your friends mad, and you're like, but look, it's like this, it's okay. Yeah, but still. They just stay mad. It doesn't matter what you show them. And if they invite that kind of energy into themselves in the long term, it transforms what they can perceive, it transforms what they can absorb, it transforms what energizes them, and it transforms their soul. And it is dark, dark, dark. And I've seen that with many friends, and I've seen that with many people. And that's why when you mess around things like alcohol, and you break down your protection of that, and you put little Swiss cheese holes in it, boom, they just shoot right in there. And they make you feel great when you're doing anything that hurts yourself because it breaks down the protection. So what you want to do is you want to start an audit. Look at your thoughts. Look at your behavior. Look at your focus. Look at your friends. Look at your relationships. Look at your associations. Look at what you put in your body. Look at your habits. Look at your overarching aspects of lifestyle. Look at your business pursuits and look at your motivations. Start looking at this and ask yourself, in a space of clarity, how many of these resonate with my ascension, with beauty, with growth, with happiness, with enjoying life? By the way, I think that laughing at dumb stuff is one of the single most important things you do in life. What are the single most important things in life? Art is one of the single most important things in life. Friendship is one of the most single important things in life. Children is one of the most single important things in life. Why? Because these are the things that are beyond just what the body would need. We don't need to create art. We don't need friendships. We don't need to laugh. We don't even need to have kids once you have contraception. We do it from our own proactive consciousness. We do it because we put a line in the sand and we say we love life and we love expansion. And if you knew right now that you weren't just driven by the intelligence of the body, but you were driven by the intelligence of the soul, if you knew that now today, what would you build? What did God build? The universe, the planets. Does God need to do that? No. In the same way, do you need to laugh or create art? No. You do this to create for the joy of creation itself. And so when you have a great friend, or when you do the right thing, or when you help even an enemy, or when you help people in general, when you give charity, you're actually connecting to a higher side of yourself. Are you connected to your finite physical self or your infinite self? You might feel offended, but if you knew that you'd live forever, if you knew that you had unlimited money, health, everything, abundance, would you ever be offended? Would you ever really care? So when you choose not to be offended, you tap into that. How do you know that? You ever been out, bar, club, and you start talking to people, and maybe you get a bit embarrassed, and then you just say, you know what, I don't care. I don't care if I'm embarrassed. It's been a long weekend. You're a trooper. I don't care if I'm embarrassed. I don't care that people didn't validate me. I'm just gonna have fun anyway. And what happens when you do that and you just let go? You tap in, you have the best night ever. But what happens if you keep resisting? You have the worst night of your life, you go home, oh, that was terrible. I feel like I just got my butt whipped, right? So that's the difference, okay? It's that non-resistance. Non-resistance connects you to your higher power, but not apathy, but proactive non-resistance. Proactive non-resistance. This is why in the Bible, the crucifixion is a powerful metaphor. It's a powerful, powerful metaphor that our awakening is through our suffering. And it's in our non-resistance to suffering that we awaken. But that doesn't mean being apathetic and just being high and drunk, sitting on a street corner with your eyes not even tracking. That's not non-resistance. That's derping. That's death. What I'm talking about is being passionate about life, but having proactive non-resistance to what comes to you. That's where your awakening is created. So, begin to do these audits and begin to see life from that higher altitude. And here's what you'll find. Start looking at things like what is expanding you, what is contracting you, what is focusing you, what is distracting you. Keep removing all distractions ruthlessly. Even this thing here, which is one of your best tools in the world, can just become this massive distraction to burn down your opportunity costs. And there's somebody at every corner waiting to do it. What is building momentum and stacking small wins versus what is depleting your momentum? What is allowing your physical body, your temple, to have proactive recovery? What is aligning your body to its natural rhythm of life, which can allow these explosive expansions? What are you putting in your body that's fueling you and depleting you? What type of focus is improving a balanced discernment that allows you to see reality in a clear way? And what focus is making you see reality incorrectly? What are habits and systems that you have that can help you? Things like taking notes, alarms, helpful apps that you might have on your phone, accountability groups, hiring a secretary if you can, high integrity, transparency whenever you can, management of expectations at all times whenever you can, getting people to write down what they agree to when you can. Win-win. Why do we do that? We understand that things like writing things down, like managing expectations, like having integrity, these are high vibration things. You know, things like the Constitution of this country, in my mind, was divinely inspired. That was handed down by God, in my view. A beautiful moment where the clouds parted and the foundation for what we have now was given to us. But we can forget about it, don't we? And it's sad that when that was created, there was many people that were not included, which is sickening. And we have to have a reckoning with that. And we have to get everybody involved in that beautiful philosophy somehow, some way, and acknowledge what's happened and find a way for everybody to be included in it. but sticking to the core of what's made us who we are today and what's allowed us to build what we have here without throwing it away and ruining everything and going to our demise. So let's get together right now and let's say to ourselves, we talked about this yesterday. We said, what would you do if you knew that you had to get everything done, but you also knew that you had to optimize for being in a good mood? Remember we had that thought experiment?
Yeah.
So this is me showing you how to do it. It's about building systems and it's about auditing. Building systems and auditing. It's about tapping in and seeing what you really resonate with. In life, and here's the main point of the whole thing. In life, there's usually 5 or 10 things that are the right things and thousands of things that are the wrong things. Narrow is the road that leads to life. Ever heard that? Yep. Many are the ways to destruction. The narrow road, that's what this means. So that's my interpretation of it. So coming from that narrow road mindset, what are the 5 or 10 things that you should put all your opportunity costs on, all your focus on? Energy capital, focus capital, time capital, all of what you have, put it there. And by the way, that includes having a night with your friends and real friendships, spending time with your children, creating art, doing things pointlessly. Could include playing a video game. But the question with the video game is, when is that challenging your mind with cool puzzles and a piece of art that some programmers made that's beautiful? And when is that just you hiding from life and being numb? It could be you eating some big fluffy cake. But when is that big fluffy cake, this beautiful thing that a chef made, something luxurious and memorable, and when is that you just piling that down and numbing yourself? There's a difference there. Things can be done in moderation from that standpoint, but most people struggle with moderation. Why? It's that old parable. The camel says, can I put my head in the tent? Can I put my nose in the tent? Can I put my nose in the tent? Can I put my head in the tent? Can I put my head in the tent? Can I put my front body in the tent? Can I put my whole body in the tent? By the end of the camel's right in there, right? And so what we think of as moderation, it winds up getting in, and we have to be honest with ourselves about that. And it really does get you like that. It tricks you, it deceives you. So, as we said, as we go into this next exercise, what do we say? If you had a challenge to always get everything done, you had that unlimited motivation, but endless motivation as we call it, but also, what if you had to stay in a good mood the whole time? Because you didn't want to have any, as we said about Michael Jordan, no wasted movements or minimal wasted movements. All those times that you got upset, how much did it ever really help you? You thought it was helping you because it provided guardrails for bad behavior. You thought it was helping you because it was a motivator because you want to run away from pain. But at a certain point, are you ever going to become a world-class executor, have endless motivation, just beating yourself up? No. Think about what your life could look like. Everybody has the same 24 hours in the day. Think about what your life could look like if you were focusing on the right things, double downing on them, triple downing on them, 1000x downing on them. What would your life look like? How amazing would it be? Think of all the time you waste. Maybe you want to go out and meet somebody at a bar or club, and you sit there looking at them, and then you get insecure, and you start overthinking it, and you start thinking too much, and now you're disconnected from the Tao, disconnected from source, and then you need them to like you so that you can feel energized, and then you start looping on that, which densifies your thinking, and then causes you to make errors, to self-qualify, to need it a bit too much, when if you just let go, you'd let it come to you. That's the idea of the Tao, the Jing, the power of non-action, which is very different from apathy, though, right? Like, I'm good at the non-action. No, that's not non-action. That's not proactive non-action. That's apathy. It's very different. So learning that. So what you're going to do, get together in your group now and begin to audit every single use of your time, friends, what you're putting your time into, all these different, I'll give you a list here. Thoughts, behaviors. Number 1, thoughts. Number 2, behaviors. Number 3, focus. Number 4, friends. Number 5, relationships and associations. Number 6, what you put in your body. Number 7, habits. Number 8, overarching aspects of your lifestyle. Number 9, business pursuits. And number 10, motivations. Do an audit of that. What is expanding and contracting you? What is focusing you and distracting you? What is building momentum, stacking small wins? What is depleting your momentum? What is allowing your body to proactively recover? What is fueling you? What is depleting you? Okay? And you don't need to get all of these, by the way. Okay? I know some of you are panicking right now. Every single one. Okay?
I was only able to write down 4 of them.
That's okay. You have your group. Next up, notes. What are some things that are high vibration? Notes. Why are notes high vibration? Because then you don't because then you don't mess up, and then you don't get mad at yourself. Alarms are high vibration because you don't mess up and you don't get mad at yourself. What your brain's doing when you miss something is it's trying to put a pain in you, and it's trying to put that pain in you. Why? So you'll stop messing up. Just put on the alarm. Just write the notes. Oh. Helpful apps so you don't forget things. Accountability groups. Why? We get mad and negative because we think that'll motivate us. Why don't you just get an accountability group or a mentor? Hire assistants if you can at a certain point. Many at a certain point. High integrity is very high vibration. Transparency whenever you can is high vibration. Management of expectations whenever you can is high vibration. Getting people to write down what they agree to is high vibration. Why? How often in business or life, people agree to something, later they reframe it because they had an RIS flip, and they blame you. Get them to write it down. Do you resonate with happiness or not? If you didn't get them to write it down, you don't resonate with happiness. You resonate with negativity because you know it's going to go negative. Maybe not every time, but sometimes. Then there's negativity. Win-win is high vibration. So we want to have audits. We want to have systems. We want to understand our focus. That's how you have endless motivation. That is how you become a transcendent executor. That is how you're able to get everything done, but with no effort. Ironically, you'll use less effort than a derper. The derper is in pain, medicating it, rationalizing, hiding from their potential, hiding from God, hiding from beauty, hiding from life. This is easy. What I'm saying here is easy. This is easier to do than what you're doing now. But you have to resonate with it. You have to accept it. A lot of my time I spend one-on-one with people very wealthy, and right when they're about to have their huge, huge breakthrough, they panic and they say, right? And so, by the way, a lot of coaches that know about this will actually say, they actually say this, I don't say this, I say the opposite of this. They say, don't push your clients too hard. If you push them too hard, they'll drop you because they're about to go to victory. What they want to do, they want a nicer jail. They don't want to get out of the jail. They want a jail with golden bars. They want a jail with fluffy pillows. They don't want to get out of jail, right? They just, maybe they want to get a little bit better with dating. So they'll come to me, help me with dating. Okay, I help them with dating. They get to continue in their same autopilot patterns, but with a better dating life. They may, get to continue the same autopilot patterns, but with a bit more money. What is any of this really worth in the end? Get it so that you can practice being an executor, so you can practice manifesting a real reality and being in control of your life. Go do that. Don't bypass that. They call that spiritual bypassing. Horrible. Take action in life. Be proactive. Wake up. Make the life of your dreams. But realize that you can't bring it with you. And you'll see that people, they literally just want to stay in a nicer version of jail. What I'm trying to show you how to do is to get out of the jail, is what I'm looking to show you how to do here, okay? A true commitment to breaking out of the matrix, a true commitment to saying, I don't resonate with that which holds me back from my potential, and realizing that almost everything in society that we're engaging with is designed to suck energy, isn't it? Even just gives a bit of energy on the front end, sucks energy on the back end, isn't it? And that's why you see a whole society of people walking around looking whacked out of their minds. And having that true commitment to recognizing everything that is taking you from your potential, and you and all of humanity, and wanting all of us to wake up, to be loving, to be infinite, to be expansive, to have beauty, and we can do that. Do you understand? I started this talk here about what is the difference between us and AI. We have that capacity. We built this. We have that capacity. That's a beauty in us. That's a capacity in us. That's a connection in us that we do have. And we want to 10x on that. That's what I've been trying to show you here today. I'm trying to future-proof everything that I teach. And this is going to be the self-help of the coming generation, of the next generation. It's getting you prepared for what's coming. So, get ready right now, okay? Get out in your groups, get into groups of 3 or 4, start talking, start having powerful conversations, start working with each other, get locked in. It's meant to be fun. I want to see laughter. I want to see happiness. I want to see you looking serious, focused, locked in. Get up, and let's do it right now. You guys ready? Yeah. All right, let's go.